California is the nation's most populous state, and with more than 400 delegates at stake, it is a big prize in the Democratic presidential primary. This year, state officials have moved up voting to March 3rd, Super Tuesday. National correspondent Stephanie Sy traveled to Southern California to hear what voters there have to say.
Around picnic tables and kitchen counters, California voters are torn between hope
I'm very confident that we'll move in a better direction.
and fear.
I'm really fearful for our democracy.
Among this set of Democrats in the Los Angeles suburb of South Whittier, the talk is grounded in the experience that comes from a life long lived.
So I'm with a candidate that is being realistic.
These are voters less moved by vision and big ideas, but attentive to policy specifics.
We want a private choice.
I like the fact that people should have options.
Kathy, Elias, Joyce, and Jan are all undecided, but former Vice President Biden feels like a safe fallback.
We need someone who can defeat Trump, and right now, I'm certainly leaning with Biden, although I'm such a strong feminist. It hurts me.
Will you be voting on March 3rd in the primary?
At a millennial phone bank event in Westwood, a stark contrast. The under 30 voters are more interested in who inspires them, and most have made up their mind.
I have my candidate that I've chosen, Pete Buttigieg.
I think I'm going to support Elizabeth Warren.
For decades, the state of California has been mostly an afterthought for Democratic primary candidates. But this year, with its earlier primary, the Golden State could be decisive.
Voters will get their vote by mail ballots the night of the Iowa caucuses.
Hello, Los Angeles!
It's why more than in the past, candidates have been coming to the state courting voters and holding rallies, not just fundraisers, says longtime political analyst Christina Bellantoni.
We used to vote in June, and by doing it in March, the idea was that you're right after, the first 4 traditional voting and caucusing states, you can have a significant impact.
The candidate who wins here in the largest state in the country will, in all likelihood, win the nomination.
But the most populous state is notoriously difficult to run a campaign in. It's a lot of ground to cover and a unique set of challenges.
Reaching that number of voters is just so expensive. I mean, you could spend $20 million on television ads in California and not really make a dent.
But despite the hurdles, many California Democrats, like working mom Amanda Notke, are energized.
I mean, I'm excited. We're spoiled for choice in a lot of ways.
Amanda was among a small contingent of Senator Elizabeth Warren supporters gathered for a Sunday morning beach cleanup in Santa Monica.
There's been a lot of talk about which candidate would do better in the general election, a progressive candidate or a moderate. Where do you fall when it comes to electability?
I want someone that is electable, but I feel like Elizabeth Warren is the best of both worlds. She's smart. She has plans, she is a progressive, but I think she also knows the Senate and she knows Congress and she knows how to get things through.
Okay, thank you, adios.
And back at the phone bank in Westwood, Rachel Bracker says this is a pivotal moment.
It feels like we're kind of on the cusp of something where our country can either go towards a more progressive future, where we're doing things like addressing climate change, addressing healthcare, addressing growing college and automobile and home debt, or we're going to ignore those issues and go towards the sort of isolationist, less united country.
A recent poll by the Los Angeles Times found Democratic primary voters in California ranked climate change as their #1 priority for the next president.
The climate is getting worse every year. Every year it's getting hotter. We're not getting rains as much anymore.
Matt and Wendy Valdivia, who live in San Bernardino County, are one of thousands of Californians who have been impacted by devastating wildfires.
That's my house starting to go up in flames.
They lost their home a little over a month ago in the Hillside Fire. The memories are still raw.
So I saw it right there, just completely engulfed in flames, and it was burned to a crisp.
So it was a total loss?
Total loss. Total everything. Everything was gone.
It just makes you feel like, what was all that for? But I mean, we're alive.
Matt and Wendy lost irreplaceable letters to their children and photos stored on a stranded laptop. But they also lost the sense of security they thought they had gained when they purchased their first home. They had saved up for 2 years to buy the house.
It's still almost check to check, you know, with everything that goes within a family. You know, you got your mortgage, and then the prices in California aren't cheap either, you know, and that just keeps rising and rising. You got your health care is rising and rising.
Insurances too, everything's, you know, you need insurance for everything.
The Valdivias face the kind of systemic challenges that make Senator Bernie Sanders' message resonate with them.
He's been there through a fight for a lot of things that weren't popular.
Matt calls himself a hardcore Bernie supporter, but like all the Democrats we spoke to, he agrees the 2020 election is about more than any single candidate. And for many voters, like Jan Baird, the bottom line is clear.
I hate to say this, but the most important quality is that they can beat Trump.
That sentiment you just heard from Jan Baird, you'll hear from a lot of California voters. They feel conflicted between supporting the Democratic candidate they really like and supporting the candidate they think can beat President Trump in 2020. There is a lot of anxiety about a repeat of the 2016 election here, and that's why the debate that PBS NewsHour and Politico are hosting tomorrow night here at Loyola Marymount University is being closely watched. A lot of undecided voters want to hear from these candidates to see who they will back in the end. John?
And Stephanie, moving California up in the primary calendar means it's going to be the first big diverse state to test the candidate's appeal.
It is the biggest state on Super Tuesday, and it is the most diverse state. A lot of Latino voters here, a lot of Asian American voters here, and there is not a single candidate that voters of color here are coalescing behind. I will say that the latest polls do show that Senator Sanders has an edge with Latino voters.
And California is also interesting because so many of the policies that the Democratic candidates are debating right now have actually been enacted out there.
Yeah, I like to say, John, that California is sort of a laboratory for progressive policies. They have the governor's mansion. They have a supermajority in the legislature here. So that has meant the last 2 years they have passed a lot of progressive legislation. They have stricter emissions controls for vehicles here. They have stricter gun control. They recently passed a bill protecting gig economy freelancers, which is still being debated in this state. So what you see is a lot of the big ideas that we'll hear candidates talk about in the debate tomorrow night actually being enacted in this state. And for that reason, Californians like to think of themselves as trendsetters.
Stephanie Sy at the site of tomorrow night's PBS NewsHour Politico debate. Stephanie, you're going to be part of our PBS coverage tomorrow. Is that right?
Yep, I'll be part of the pre-show, the halftime show, and the post-show along with my colleagues. I hope everyone tunes in.
Pre-show starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and remember the full debate starting at 8 p.m. Eastern on PBS stations.